Yeshiva World.
Hi everybody, this is Peretz Eichler, Yeshiva World News, Front and Center Talk, Peretz Eichler News and Commentary. We're going to be talking very shortly with Congressman Andrew P. Harris from the 1st Congressional District in Maryland. About a month ago, he was on a trip to Eretz Yisrael. Little did he or anybody else imagine that right in the very pathways and the footsteps that he walked near the Gush Etzion in Israel, about a month later, 3 young boys, teenagers on the way home from school, were kidnapped by Arab terrorists. And we're going to be speaking to the congressman and hear what he has to say in light of what's been going on and in light of his own reflections after having returned from Israel. I want to thank the congressman for joining us here on Front and Center Talk on Yeshiva World News. And Congressman, thank you very much. I know you just got off a plane. Thanks very much for joining us.
No, my pleasure to be with you today.
Let me ask you something. First of all, you came out with a very bold and brave statement condemning not only the act, which we hope anybody would do, but that you said that this was something where America should now think about taking some of its resources and doing everything they can to find these boys and possibly even sanctioning financially the PA by virtue of this. So I'd like to ask you about those statements and also ask you if your trip, in fact, somehow managed to shed any further light on appreciating the gravity of this current crisis.
Well, it did. The trip we took a month ago, we spent a fair amount of time in Judea and Samaria. We visited several of the communities where Israelis live in those regions, and realized the danger that they in which they live on a daily basis, but really caused, I think, more by a small group of radical, terrorists who control Hamas and radical groups that just have to be brought under control. And the bottom line is that now that the Palestinian Authority has decided to include Hamas once again, I think it's their responsibility to see to the safe return of these boys. And if it takes the United States withholding aid until the PA is able to help accomplish that, then that's what it'll take.
Do you think at this moment, is there any movement in Congress toward actually putting any sanctions into place?
Well, this happened while we were outside of Washington. We were back in our district, so on the House side, we all just got back into town now. So in the next couple of days, it'll become very clear if the House is going to take action either with a resolution or with other concrete action. And again, I hope that the administration takes this threat very seriously, because it goes beyond the pale to kidnap boys for terrorist ends.
Do you think the fact that one of the kids is an American citizen as well will mitigate anything that the United States will do?
Well, I certainly hope that we protect that American citizen. As honestly, we should protect the boys who are citizens of our ally nation. But particularly because an American citizen was involved, I think that's grounds for the U.S. to take action, again, including withholding funding of the Palestinian Authority until that American citizen and his two friends are returned.
You had said something very interesting about your going over with other congressmen. You said all 400 plus congressmen could not go at once, so you were going there kind of to be an observer and bring back what you saw to the Congress and to the Senate. Can you tell us some of the things that you saw, that you observed, that perhaps you didn't have quite as deep an understanding of prior to that trip?
Well, a perfect example is on our first trip, we did not go on the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount at that time, 3 years ago, was not open to non-Muslims, and we couldn't go, and this time we did. And we experienced firsthand some of the intimidation, that occurs to non-Muslim visitors to the Temple Mount. And of course, subsequent to that, after we left, there have been at least 2 incidences, I understand. One very recently, where the Temple Mount, had to be closed, and where security forces had to go on the Temple Mount to establish peace on the Temple Mount. I think most people don't realize the bias that occurs again when a Christian or a Jew wants to go on the Temple Mount, and if they don't see it firsthand, I think it's hard to appreciate.
A little more controversy with Jews going on the Temple Mount, but certainly the fact that somebody who's a non-Muslim should be confronted. I mean, that's something also which is something which is very serious, something serious that has to be addressed. But let me ask you this: now that we have this current crisis, and people are getting to see a little bit about what the hand of Hamas is really like, do you think that the Palestinian Authority president, Mr. Abbas, is going to have to make a decision as to whether or not he's going to remain aligned with Hamas? And if he does, how will that affect the United States' policy if he still remains intact and in line with them?
Well, honestly, I think that we were on the verge in the House of probably restricting funding based on that alliance with Hamas, the unification government that was recently established. And I think this has just brought that issue to a head. I don't think, given this kidnapping, I think it makes it much more likely that the House will take action in this year's appropriations budget to restrict funding to the Palestinian Authority based on the inclusion of Hamas. I think this proves to the world that I don't think it's an accident. I don't think it's coincidental that this occurred right after the inclusion of Hamas in the unification government.
I mean, it's not like after the fact, therefore because of it. It is, in fact, because of that fact. I would ask you this, Congressman, as well. Is this something which you think will transcend politics? If there is such a beast that exists transcending politics, will this issue transcend both sides of the aisle, as you see it now, especially precipitated by this crisis?
Well, I think it not only transcends both sides of the aisle, I think it transcends both sides of the Atlantic. As you know, the European Union issued a statement condemning the kidnapping of these children. I think our Secretary of State is condemning this terrorist act, and I think I hope that there will be willingness to go beyond mere statements of condemnation, and again doing something concrete, such as talking about withholding funding, and in fact, if necessary, withholding funding, in order to, I think, to convince the Palestinian Authority that including Hamas is not. I should put this way: including Hamas is a very destabilizing action, and I think we're seeing that.
How does something like a sanction happen? Is it a bill that would be introduced to Congress? And if so, would you be at the forefront of that?
We could sanction, but the simplest sanction is just withholding funds. As you know, hundreds of millions of dollars flow to the Palestinian Authority from the United States in the hope that peace can be maintained. But in the absence of peace, or peaceful actions, and certainly this terrorist kidnapping could be described as an absence of peace. I think we have to rethink the transfer of that kind of aid. Other sanctions, that would be the most direct and easy to do sanction, because it would just involve, actually the president could do it unilaterally. He could withhold the spending, and Congress would support him for this fiscal year. And of course, starting October 1st, we're going to be considering that legislation coming through House of Representatives and at some point through the Senate in the next month and a half.
Well, as a congressman and also as a skilled and trained physician, which you are, doctor, let me ask you the following. I would imagine that as a physician, you would understand that when one treats the symptoms of something, other than, I guess, the common cold, you're merely treating the symptom. One has to get at the root cause of the disease. I guess the analogy would be somebody that has a high fever, and giving them a cold shower would probably give them pneumonia rather than curing the ailment. What do you think is really at the heart of this plague, of this disease? And if you think that sanctions or anything else are really required to treat more than just the symptoms?
Well, I think that that nothing can go forward. There can be no negotiation going forward if any hint of inclusion of a terrorist group or a group that calls for the destruction of the state of Israel is involved. I think that is just a non-starter. And again, that gets to the absolute heart of the matter. The heart of the matter is that there are groups that call for the destruction of the state of Israel. that certainly promote terrorist activity, just like the kidnapping of these boys. And I think the clear message has to be sent that a priori inclusion of any of that is just not going to be tolerated in determining any kind of final outcome, because there is no final outcome possible if those groups are involved. I mean, it's just as if you say you could sign an agreement, but that agreement just puts a Band-Aid on a problem that will continue to fester and one day will lead to more serious problems.
Or as Yogi Berra put it, a contract that's an oral contract isn't worth the paper that it's written on. In this case, even the paper that it's written on, we would wonder what that's worth. One last thing, Congressman, is there anything that you would like the American people to know, anything that you would like your constituents to know that you think we should take from this? And also just piggybacking onto that, what do you think America can do at this point? Is there anything that we can do other than these sanctions? Is there any immediate action that the White House or anybody from the American side is able to take in terms of putting in resources to bring this to a hopeful, peaceful conclusion?
Well, it's certainly in addition to direct action by the United States, especially regarding our transfer of payments to the Palestinian Authority that's been ongoing for years, we should actually be working with our allies for universal condemnation of this act. There should be no civilized nation on earth that will support this kind of action. And I would hope that, again, that our State Department and our Secretary of State and our administration is, in fact, encouraging our friends and allies throughout the world to join us in this condemnation. And the collective action, I think it'll take that kind of collective action in support of these boys that hopefully will result in their safe return.
We certainly hope so. Congressman Harris, I want to thank you very much for taking time from your busy schedule to talk to us here on Yeshiva World News, and we hope to be in touch with you again soon. We wish you much success in your continued work on behalf of not only your constituency, but of all those of us who are citizens of this great country, the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye now.
All right, there you heard it. That is Congressman Andrew P. Harris, a congressman from the 1st Congressional District in Maryland. About a month ago, he was in Eretz Yisrael, and he was on Gush Etzion. He was by Kfar Etzion, walking the very same footsteps where very possibly those three youngsters were kidnapped, Hashem Yerachim. And hopefully his voice will be heard in Congress, and maybe that'll actually make a difference in changing the course of the future. Right now, we're concerned about the present and the well-being of these three youngsters. May they be returned safely. This is Peretz Eichler for Yeshiva World News.
Yeshiva World.